What's up? What's up? It's Juwan Buford Broadcasting, Troy Metropolitan Area. And what I want to talk about today is a conversation I had with one of our partners recently about some of the challenges she was having in her business with impatience and also dealing with the people who are around her. And what I shared with her is a story about an interaction I had with a person whom I counted as a friend years ago. This must have been like 10 years ago. Maybe as much as, I don't know, maybe even 13 or even 14 years ago. And I remember I was sitting down speaking with the individual about the plans that I had, how I wanted to build this massive business development organization, how I wanted to utilize certain relationships I had with companies around me to achieve this vision, this goal, right? And talking about how I wanted to create a situation where the organization was so big, that it was so massive, not just in terms of the number of people, but the people having success, that we would literally stimulate the economy, right? Anyone who's worked with me knows that has been a goal of mine. And the reason why that's important to me is because, once again, I believe entrepreneurship is empowerment. I believe that the most effective way to help people live more fulfilled lives of satisfaction, is to give them the means and the tools to grow successful businesses so they can take control of what happens at their kitchen table. Because let's face it, once again, it's tough to make smart decisions in terms of your family when your stomach is touching your back financially. You don't know where your next dollar is coming from, either because your business isn't generating revenues on a consistent basis, or because you don't know whether a job is going to be there 2 years, 2 months, 20 years from now, right? It's tough to make those type of decisions. And it's just hard to live your best life when you are living a life that is dominated by scarcity, right? And of course, we know it's the small business owners that ultimately determine your quality of life. You go to any community in the United States, with rare exception, and the communities that have thriving small businesses are the communities that are healthy, right? Because they're the primary employers. And when you're the employer, you determine whether or not the grass gets cut. You determine whether or not trash gets picked up. You determine whether or not there's a school, a rec center, or a liquor store at the end of your block, right? And so I wanted to build this. I had this vision, because if I could create 100,000 successful entrepreneurs, whether they be in my block, my city, my county, region, state, whatever the case may be, I know that's one of the greatest contributions I can make to make the community healthier and just to create more camaraderie. I just believe a rising tide lifts all ships. So that was my vision, right? And I remember the person looked me in the face and said, look, who are you to do that? Why do you believe you're the one to do that? Why should people follow you? Now, never mind, I already had this track record of building organizations. Never mind, I already had this track record of mobilizing people. Never mind, I've already experienced what it's like to have a $30,000. I know what a dollar a month feels like too, but I know what it's like to have a $30,000 month as an entrepreneur. So never mind, I had this track record. None of that stuff mattered, right? And what I'd share with our partner was simply this: what you have to understand about the people around you is that people around you, your family, your friends, your network, they may not necessarily want to see you broke on the curb and on the street starving. Now, you got some haters in your network too. People are always surprised by the fact that, look, if you're moving forward in life, if you're progressing, dogs don't bark at parked cars. You're going to have some haters, right? But for the most part, your family, your friends, people around don't want to see you broke and on your knuckles, right? Starving. But you know what? They also don't want to see you leveling up faster and more effectively than them. And you have to understand that you should not take it personally. Don't take it personal. It's just human nature, right? Sapiens. I think that's the title of one of the books behind me, right? It's our human nature. And so because of that, if people aren't necessarily supporting your business, if they're not willing to patronize you, if they're not willing to pay for your product and service, if they're not willing to pay for your value prop, don't get upset with them. Because most people are, whether they know you or not, no one woke up today, with rare exception, and says, you know what? How can I make this person's life better? No, they're waking up thinking about WIIFM. What's in it for me? They're thinking about taking care of their families, meeting their needs, meeting their comforts, being comfortable, right? And so it's like almost a sense of entitlement to believe that people are waking up to make you wealthy, to make you rich. That's not how human beings work. And what I shared was this: while the people around you may not be willing to support you right now, right? Because you haven't had time to cook yet. And I'm going to get into this in a moment. They may not be willing to patronize you right now. But you know what? You can still acquire referrals. And that's why I'm a huge proponent of learning R3, right? When you're working with people, particularly those of us who are in the quote unquote B2B space, business to business space, right? Here's the thing. The people around you may not be willing to patronize you directly, but that doesn't mean they don't see value in what you're doing, right? But that human nature kicks in and they're like, you know what I mean when I'm going with this, right? That's that feeling you get when you're talking to family, friends, people in your network, and they're not gung-ho about what you're doing and not willing to part the hard-earned currency in your back pocket. But here's the thing. When people see value in what it is that you do, if they truly see value in it, while they may not be willing to buy, once again, they are willing to refer.